everybody and welcome to the final part of our Sonic Heroes No Ring Challenge. Up to now, Team Rose takes the lead with the least amount of rings collected in a story, so we're going to now today see if it's possible to do this with Team Chaotix. I already know that it's going to be impossible, simply because I am positive that in one of their stages, I think it's Casino Park, you are forced to collect, I think it's like 300 rings. So unless there's a glitch to get around it, it ain't happening, Chief, but that's why we're here today, to see if it's possible.
Seaside Hill.
Right, so after I stopped being autistic, Seaside Hill is the location. In Team Chaotix story, you are forced into mission mode. Rather than just simply getting to the goal ring, you have to do a variety of tasks. Seaside Hill has us collect 10 hermit crabs. Why? Why the fuck not? This went as about expected. If you know where the locations of these crabs are, it's a piece of piss. There's not very many rings that get in your way, so avoiding them is also a piece of piss. We finished Seaside Hill with 0 rings. Ocean Palace is a glorified version of Get to the Goal Ring, as we have to traverse through a majority of the stage and find a lost Chao at the end of it. And it's as simple as it sounds, literally just get to the end and bust open the cage and rescue the Chao. Not a problem whatsoever, a couple of tricky rings here and there, but no biggie in the end. We finish Ocean Palace with 0 rings. Egg Hulk works exactly the same as it does in the other stories, in that you just jump backwards at the start to avoid the rings that they place in front of you, and then you go on to wail on the boss in the middle, and job's a good one. We finish Egg Hulk with 0 rings. Grand Metropolis is up next, and this is where people have problems with Team Chaotix. The third mission in the game makes you destroy every enemy on the stage, and there's 85 of them. That sounds like a monumental task for only the 3rd level, but believe me, it's not that bad. Provided you don't stray too far off the path and you follow along where the game wants you to go, you'll be just as good as gold. We finish Grand Metropolis with 0 rings. Power Plant has you destroy 3 golden turtles, and of course these are enemies that are apparent in every story apart from Team Rose, I believe. However, there's a small catch with this one. At first, when I played the stage, I finished it with 5 rings, assuming it was impossible to beat this one without shooting all these targets, as I thought that's how you unlock the cage. But it turns out, after a bit of digging, you only need to shoot one specific target to unlock the cage. And as we discovered in previous stories, these targets grant you completely random items, whether or not that's rings, or 1-up, or Team Blast. So we just had to keep shooting it on a reset until we got it without rings, and we sure enough did. So that brings us to the end with 0 rings. Team Doc's another rival fight where we don't spawn on top of a ring by some miracle. I don't know why this is apparent in some stages and some that it's not, but for whatever reason, we get off lucky this time and we finish Team Doc without collecting a ring. And just as I said in the intro, this is where things went tits up. Casino Park has you collect 200 rings as the mission. I remember years ago I saw some kind of a glitch or a video where you was able to restart the stage and gaslight the game into thinking that you finished the stage and you could complete it instantly with 0 rings or anything like that. However, I could not find this video anywhere for the life of me, and I also could not replicate what I thought I saw all those years ago, so I was forced into playing the stage as normal, just making sure to not end in a slot machine because you can go over the 200 tally. So we very carefully collected 200 rings. Oh dear. I think that quite obviously means this is impossible. But we're going to try and minimise the rest of them anyway. Bingo Highway was thankfully not as much of a bastard as it was in the other stories. We don't spawn on a bingo table. As a matter of fact, the game lets us off easy at the start before we ease into things. And it was in an earlier stage where I discovered that Espio's tornado attack, I completely forgot about this, turns him invisible, and this leaves behind the rest of your party. And of course, as you found out if you've seen the other videos, which if you haven't, you should, the party just balloons absolutely everywhere because the AI in this game is not, well, it's not very good. They just go anywhere and everywhere, and they are programmed to collect rings quite idly. So by leaving them behind, they could not move at all. So you're able to run along on your own and complete these stages as the speed character from, well, a majority of the stages anyway, as the speed character, and get through them a lot faster than slogging around as the flight character, a mechanic I definitely abused. But anyways, we move on with Bingo Highway, and we use that mechanic to our advantage on the bingo tables by leaving behind Vector and Jarmy, so we can go on them alone as Espio, which means we have a tiny hitbox and we're able to collect these chips without the risk of destroying any unnecessary neon signs or picking up any unnecessary rings. And we finish the stage with 0 rings. Robot Storm and Robot Carnival I'm going to cover in the same go. Yes, of course, they're exactly the same as they are in the rest of the stories, and we cannot finish them without forcefully picking up the ring that it spawns us on. So we finish them both with a ring each. Rail Canyon's next, and this is one of the only normal stages in this campaign, where all we need to do is get to the goal ring And thank God for it, because Rail Canyon is a really fun stage in this campaign, because in one of the coolest aspects of this campaign, they have unique level design in quite a few stages, and this is one of them. This is quite a fun interpretation of the stage in my opinion. It's quite balanced in its difficulty, and it's got enough unique set pieces in comparison to the other ones to be, pretty fun. There's not many rings around either that you're going to probably pick up on accident, and I don't think I had to do a single restart. Rail Canyon was finished with 0 rings. Bullet Station has proved to be the bane of my existence in every story so far, so let's see if we can rectify that here. Of course, if you're unaware, the main gimmick of this stage is these huge ass cannons that are present throughout the entire stage as decoration until you eventually infiltrate one of those bases and fire yourself out of said cannon. Now of course, as you duck and weave between all the balloons in these canyons, you can only move left and right, so that means when there's a balloon in the centre, you're pretty fooked, and of course there just had to be 2 of them in this instance, so we're forcibly collecting the balloons. Thankfully they only contain 5 rings and no more, but as far as that goes, that means we can finish the stage with 10 rings, which is, again, no good. Egg Albatross, like the other stories, spawns us on top of a ring and we can't do anything about that, so we finish that boss with 1 ring. Frog Forest was very similar to that of Rail Canyon, apart from it had a twist. We had to actually use this SBO mechanic that we've been abusing the whole time and use that to get to the end of the stage, because if any of these frogs spot us, we gotta restart. It's a really cool stage gimmick that I quite enjoy. The later stage, Egg Fleet, also does the same thing, and I think it's one of the funnest levels in the game. As far as it goes for the no ring challenge, well, everything was all well and good, we was getting by nice and easy, until we get to these flowers, which, the same in Team Sonic's story, we have to just fly into 1 balloon. We're forced into it. There's no way around it. We can't bridge the gap between here and the vine. So unfortunately, we have to collect this balloon and finish the stage with 5 rings. A similar theory applies to Lost Jungle in that it gave me Team Sonic syndrome. Unlike the other stories where we found out that we can avoid using these vines to go underneath this balloon and not pick up the rings in the balloon, for some reason this story has 1 less vine and 1 less platform, which makes the jump even larger, and I was unable to get past it after all my trying, so I eventually had to give up and collect the 5 rings in this balloon. The rest of the stage was perfectly fine, as the 10 Charles are super easy to find as there's plenty scattered in the stage, which is a shame. We finished Lost Jungle with 5 rings. Team Rose is yet another boss fight where you don't spawn on top of a ring for whatever miraculous reason, so that makes it nice and easy to finish without picking up a ring. Hang Castle was up next. Footage you're about to see, it might look a bit quicker because I actually had to play this stage again, because during my recording of the initial stage and Mystic Mansion, the recording just died. It turns out my hard drive got full, so that lost a lot of footage, so we went back and we did it again. But as far as Hang Castle goes, we need to go and scour for 10 keys. There's only 10 on the map, so you can't miss a single one of them, and considering this was my second run through of the level, I managed to miss one. How? I have no idea, but I know which one I missed, so finding it weren't too bad. But picking up rings in this stage is next to impossible, provided that you're just not being stupid, essentially. There's no ring bubbles that, are in the way. Everything's just layering around on the floor, so you're totally fine. We finished this stage with 0 rings. Mystic Mansion has been a stage that has caused us some problems. I've mitigated to mention this in the previous video and this one so far, but Team Rose and Team Chaotix do not possess the ability to do the Lightspeed Dash, and that is an ability that has caused us plenty of issues in some stages in the other stories. So thankfully Mystic Mansion gets rid of that stupid fucking trippy room that it has at the end of Team Dark and Team Sonic's story for this level. Instead, this stage has us do the worst mission in the game in extinguishing 60 red torches. And how do we do this? We have to turn SBO invisible by doing his tornado attack, and very slowly and painfully rinsing and repeating until it's done. This is about as fun as it sounds. Thankfully though, as I am a master of this game and I have years of experience underneath my belt and I know every last little secret, this is a mechanic that surprisingly little people know about. If you get your speed character to level 3, their homing attack will produce a gust of wind. If you've ever noticed this as a level 3 speed character and you've hit an enemy and it doesn't die straight away, chances are they'll fly in the air. You can also use this ability to jump on these tornado poles without having to do the tornado jump. You can just home and attack into them and you'll go spinning. So I thought, what if we try that with the torches? If we were to home and attack the torch as level 3 SBO, does it distinguish it? And yes, it does. So thankfully we can save a lot of time by doing that and just run around as SPO completely invisible without anyone else following us, because they can accidentally pick rings up, as they did a lot early in the stage while I was working towards level 3. But thankfully we can finish Mystic Mansion for the first time with 0 rings. Egg Fleet's up next, and unlike the other stories, we do not start on the battleship that the cutscene takes place on. It just drops us in the middle of nowhere, and like I said earlier, we just got to get to the end of the stage without being spotted. This is, again, an incredibly fun challenge, probably my favourite stage in Team Chaotix's story, and one of my favourite in the game for that matter. However, everything was all well and good until we got to the end. The game gaslights you into thinking you need to use the Team Blast to take out this robot without being detected. But for whatever reason, I'm not sure if this is why this is the case or not, I didn't test it, but if you was to use SBO and tap the square button, much like you do the Rocket XL for other characters, he throws a shuriken before he gets a burst of speed. And when I hit the enemy with this shuriken, it didn't seem to respond, but I began to home and attack the enemy and nothing happened. It just let me wail away on it until it broke. Now the other enemies, the egg pawns in this stage, if you was to do that, would detect you and you'd have to restart. Whether or not the shuriken somehow fucked up the coding on this robot or it stunned it, I do not have a fucking clue. But I will not complain because we finish Egg Fleet with 0 rings. The last stage of the game, Final Fortress, is exactly the same as Hand Castle in that we have to collect keys. However, this stage only possesses 5 rather than 10. And it, again, is another stage that you can just go through as normal. You don't have to pick any rings up. Everything's all nicely laid out for you on the floor, so you're not going to have many issues picking them up. Just don't jump into the bubbles and everything's hunky-dory. And we finish the stage with 0 rings. Last but not least, Egg Emperor once again is a stage that you don't spawn on any rings, and the only thing you have to do is avoid them when you get to fighting the boss when it gets to the middle of the arena and as you're running along to chase it. Now, I believe that Team Chaotix personally has the hardest version of this fight, because for whatever reason the cannons feel more aggressive, there's harder enemies in the middle to avoid. It just feels like a souped up version of the fight for whatever reason, and I can't quite explain it. Considering these guys aren't hard mode, it sure feels like it. The Egg Emperor goes as normal and you finish it with 0 rings. Okie dokie then, with all that said and done, we've now got our grand totals for every single team. And of course, Team Sonic, we collected 166. Team Dark, we collected 168. Rose, we collected 66. And the Eye Waterer is Team Chaotix, and the only reason it's this bad is because of Casino fucking Park. If that level had a skip where you could just somehow tell the game, I ain't collected no rings, but you have collected the rings possible for it, then you could technically finish it in 0 with glitches. I'm more than sure, I couldn't find a video, but I'm positive back in the day I saw a video where you collected the amount of rings you needed, and then you restarted the stage on the frame you beat the level, and it would count and you'd beat the stage with 0 rings. I don't recall if that's true or if I'm making shit up, but I recall seeing something like that back in the day. But anyways, I tried it, I couldn't pull it off. So we finished Team Chaotix with 223 rings, and if that skip did exist, we would only finish it with 23, which would not be too bad. So, and just out of curiosity, because I don't remember if there's any rings in the first stage of the final boss. I know, obviously, Supersonic, you start with rings and they drain. I want to see if it's possible to beat the last story without collecting a ring while we're here, because it's only literally a boss fight. That's all it is. There's no stage. So, as far as Metal Madness goes, I don't remember. But I know Metal Overload, you need to collect rings and bubbles to keep yourself going before you die. So let's see what we can do, because theoretically we could just spam the Team Blast glitch. We spawn on a fucking ring. What does it matter? It's ridiculous shit. Fuck this game. With my hopes and dreams crushed in an instant, we decide to truck on anyway and see what we can do. Now, the thing is with Metal Madness, and I didn't account for this, when you're wailing away at his core, eventually when you finish, he's going to knock you back and thrust you into the middle of the arena so that you can phase out and phase into the next team. And of course that means being flung into the rings that are in the middle. We might spawn on top of any random ring, however, when you get flung into them, it's completely down to chance where you land. And no matter how many times I went back, we always collected rings. So we had to just essentially just firm it and see if we got lucky and didn't collect many rings by the end of it. So by the end of it with Team Dark, there's hardly any in the middle, thank Christ. But we get there in the end, and of course the ring tally doesn't reflect what we actually collected. I was making notes of what we collected throughout the fight, but we finished it with 9 rings collected.
To have a robot overlord rule a robot kingdom. Long time no see, Sonic. My loathsome copy.
And finally, Metal Overlord, the true final boss of the game, sees Supersonic take it on alongside Tails and Knuckles in these wimpy little bubbles, but oh well. Now, of course, being a Supersonic fight, your rings will deplete throughout the boss, and the idea is to collect rings to keep going, and they are within these bubbles. Now, we're alpha gamers, we ain't going to be doing that, son. We're going to be moving on like tanks. The idea here was to take him down as fast as possible by using the glitch that fills up the Team Blast meter that we've been using in the other stories to take on bosses. Now, that being said, I don't know if it would be possible to do this in time by playing it normally. Chances are if you played perfectly, you'd get it done. Simply because if you was to use Sonic during the crystal attack and you was able to break every crystal, you've basically got a full home and attack meter. Same with Tails and the missiles. So I do believe this would be possible without having done the glitch. I only did the glitch because, well, it's quicker and frankly a lot easier than just going through it normally, but who cares? But I can confirm by doing this glitch anyway, and through common sense as well especially, that yeah, this would indeed be possible to do without having to refresh your ring count, because 5 Team Blast is not as much as it sounds if you play perfectly, and this is not a hard boss by any means. So we finish that with 0 rings.
The ultimate overlord, Metal Sonic. I am the real Sonic.
Yeah, we did it!
Phew, that was pretty tough. Too bad it's all over. For you!
I'm going to talk over this cutscene. That is 9 rings that I counted. It might be 8, it's one of the two. I'm pretty sure it's 9. So, what does that leave our full game total as? Well, let's take a doodle like that, shall we? So 166 plus 168 plus 66 plus 223. I believe it was. Was it 223? Yes, plus 9. Let's call it 9. 632 rings. Fucking shit. That's a lot of rings. So, don't know about you, but I don't think it's possible to beat this game without collecting a ring.